What's going on, everybody? Ezri Rosa here. Today is the day, ladies and gentlemen. NFC Championship. The fight for the right to go to the Super Bowl. You have the second-seeded San Francisco 49ers traveling to the unfriendly and hostile confines of Lincoln Financial Field to take on the top-seeded Philadelphia Eagles. In fact, before I get into this game, I just want to talk about something real quick. I've seen a lot of disrespect hurled at this team and our players over the last week. So firstly, Hassan Reddick, despite having 16 sacks and 5 forced fumbles, he was not a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year somehow. Okay, there's that. And then, even more egregiously, Brandon Graham, who despite being 34 years old, despite coming off a torn Achilles, and despite getting 11 sacks this year, he was not a finalist for Comeback Player of the Year. That is blasphemous. How are neither of them finalists for those respective categories? But you know what? I can't even be mad because I understand why they do this. I understand why they disrespect our players because it's Philadelphia. People do not like Philadelphia. The Eagles are a very disliked team, ladies and gentlemen. But in the words of Jason Kelsey, no one likes us. We don't care. So anyway, you got the San Francisco 49ers. This will definitely, without a doubt, be our most toughest opponent we've faced this year. This will be easily the most formidable team to oppose us in the 2022 season. They have won 12 straight games. 12 straight games. That is the longest win streak by any team this season. And in fact, so this 49ers season has been highlighted by the emergence of Brock Purdy, a quarterback who was literally picked last in the 2022 NFL Draft. This rookie quarterback comes in against the Miami Dolphins after Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, and Garoppolo himself was filling in for an injured Trey Lance. And this guy, he goes 7-0 as a starter, 5-0 in the regular season, and then he goes 2-0 in the playoffs. So this guy, Brock Purdy, he has a nice storybook going on right now. People are comparing him to Kurt Warner. Some are calling him like Tom Brady of 2001. When he filled in for Drew Bledsoe and won the Super Bowl over the Rams, his first Super Bowl. But you know what? Okay, it was a nice story for a little bit, but that's got to end today. The Brock Purdy fairy tale Cinderella run, it ends today. I'm going to start with the offensive side of the ball. So the 49ers defense, they have the best defense in the league this year. They're very stout against the pass. They're very stout against the run. But they do have a big weakness. The 49ers do have a big weakness that we can exploit, and that is the fact that the 49ers have not been good at covering the deep passes this year. I believe they are last in the league when it comes to coverage against the deep balls. They cannot defend these deep balls being thrown against them. And you could go back to a few weeks ago against the Las Vegas Raiders. Jared Stidham, he was really airing it out on the 49ers defense. Las Vegas really took advantage of that deficiency of the 49ers defense. The way they play defense, so DeMeco Ryans' defense, he used to play for the Eagles, by the way. So their defense, it thrives on stopping the underneath stuff, like the intermediate, like short-range stuff in the middle of the field. But when it comes to those long bombs, they are very susceptible to that. And Jalen Hurts, one of his biggest improvements this year from last year is his deep ball accuracy. Like the first time I noticed it was in week 2 against the Minnesota Vikings when he threw that 60-yard bomb to Quez Watkins on Monday Night Football. That was when I was like, whoa, this is going to be a different Jalen Hurts this year. That deep bomb against the Vikings, that was when it showed me that Jalen Hurts was going to be a different player this year. It's staggering how night and day it is when you compare it to last year when he really struggled passing the ball with consistency. So the problem for the San Francisco 49ers is that with this deficiency they have in covering deep passes, you have to worry about not just A.J. Brown, but Devontae Smith too. And I'm also going to throw in Quez Watkins, the guy who, like I said before, he caught the bomb against the Vikings. And I know people are sour on Quez Watkins. I get it. So he had a fumble against Washington in the first game that we lost, a very critical fumble in that game. And then on Christmas Eve against the Cowboys, he caused 2 interceptions by Gardner Minshew because he got out-battled by the Cowboy defenders both times. But I have not lost faith in Quez Watkins. He had some rough patches, but don't we all have rough patches in life, ladies and gentlemen? I'm not going to lose faith in him because I still think that Quez Watkins is a very underrated weapon on this offense. I think he could be very lethal. He's got blazing speed. I think that the guy, as long as I feel like he gets into his head a little bit. If he could get out of his own head, I feel like Quez Watkins, he's going to be that difference maker. You've seen it. You've seen him. I've seen him bounce after adversity. So after the Washington game that we lost, our first loss of the season, where he had that critical fumble late in the game, he scored touchdowns in the next 2 games. 1 touchdown on each. He had one against the Colts, that comeback in Indianapolis, and then he had one against Green Bay, against the Green Bay Packers. So Quez Watkins, I've seen him rebound from some tough stretches. I hope we can see him do it again in the playoffs. So that goes for the offense. And now the Eagles, I feel like whenever we trip ourselves up, whenever we struggle on offense this year, it's when we come out disproportionately passing the ball. You saw it against the Chicago Bears, the game where Jalen Hurts got hurt. And then you saw it against the New Orleans Saints where Gardner Minshew was playing and they weren't trying to run the ball. Gardner Minshew was bad in that game, but the coaching staff also didn't put him in a position to succeed because they had him passing the ball so much. They didn't want to run the ball. That could have been because Sanders was reportedly nursing an ankle injury at the time, but still, you have Kenneth Gainwell, you have Boston Scott, Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen. Please don't come out this game on the first 11 plays passing the ball. Balance the offense. Play action is going to be critical to winning this game because you have to run the ball enough to the fact that the 49ers have to respect it. And once they sell out to the, well, not sell out, once they respect the run, once the fear of the run is there, that means that you can burn them on those play action plays. A play action bomb down the field because they cannot cover deep passes. The 49ers have been terrible against deep passes all season long. And Jalen Hurts, one of the best aspects of his game this year is the deep ball. And that brings me to the offensive line. So offensive line, a lot of people knows, offensive line is one of the most unappreciated aspects of football. Great offensive line play. And we have really benefited from that. Like last week, the offensive line against the Giants, we were running the ball so well because the offensive line was just destroying the Giants' defensive front. Jason Kelce was owning Dexter Lawrence. Like you had those guys, Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson. Those guys, they're really doing their jobs. Actually, every single starting offensive lineman was either selected to the Pro Bowl or named as an alternate. That's a very strong testament to Jeff Stoutland's unit. Our offensive line, even though I have seen certain instances this year where they haven't played up to their potential, like in week 1 against the Detroit Lions and in week 15 against the Chicago Bears, our offensive line has been crucial to the success of our team this year. And Lane Johnson, by the way, him in particular, the fact that he's playing through a torn abdominal tendon, decided to put off surgery until after the playoffs, really got admired at by Lane Johnson. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. I think he will be a Hall of Famer, but it won't be first ballot because of the PEDs, I'm guessing. But the guy literally set a record recently for most snaps without a sack allowed. Like he set a record. We're talking about the most snaps without a sack. Like Lane Johnson is that dude. Lane Johnson is him. Lane Johnson is Himmy Johns. So anyway, so now it comes to the defense. Brock Purdy, at the end of the day, people can bloviate about Brock Purdy. He's doing a great job. He's on a roll and all that, okay? But listen, he is still a rookie in a high atmosphere, in a high-stakes atmosphere in the playoffs. And if you pressure him, he's going to make those rookie mistakes. I believe if you could get some real heat on Brock Purdy, he will show you why he was picked last in the draft. He will show you that he is still a rookie quarterback. So if you watched the game last week, the Dallas Cowboys defense actually played extremely well against Brock Purdy and the 49ers offense. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, all those other guys, they were really holding their own against the 49ers offense. If the Cowboys offense had competent quarterback play, if the Cowboys offense had a quarterback that didn't turn the ball over carelessly, I think the Cowboys win that game against San Francisco. They were forcing a lot of mistakes by Brock Purdy. In fact, Brock Purdy seemed to elude the sack very well until last week. And you saw those mistakes because of all the pressure he was facing. In fact, he nearly burnt the clock at the end of the first half and nearly cost the 49ers a field goal in that game by burning clock. He got away with it. I think they had like 1 second left on the clock. But Brock Purdy last week, he struggled against the Cowboys defense. And you were really starting to see those signs of being rattled. And now he has to face the Philadelphia Eagles defensive front. We were the best defensive line in the league this year. We had 72 sacks, I believe. And we came very close to breaking a record held by the 1984 Bears for most sacks in a season. Of course, they did it in 16 games. We had a 17th game, but still, we came close to breaking that record. We got Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick. You have Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Javon Hargrave. So one of the things I really loved about last week's game against the Giants was Jonathan Gannon. I've had my reservations about Gannon. I've criticized him in the past, but Gannon did a spectacular job against the New York Giants last week. Despite us leading that game by a large margin, he did not get comfortable. Jonathan Gannon, despite us being up like 28-0 at halftime, I believe, Jonathan Gannon kept sending heavy pressure after Daniel Jones all night long. He was unrelenting with the pressure. He did not call off the dogs, and I really appreciated that because Gannon, a lot of people's problem with him is a lack of aggressiveness. And last week against the Giants, he was very aggressive. If you send heat at Brock Purdy, I think he's going to make those mistakes. You got Brock Purdy playing in Philadelphia, a playoff game in Philadelphia in front of the most raucous fans in the league. You can force mistakes off of him. He is still a rookie quarterback. I get it. He's 7-0. I get that. He's 2-0 in the playoffs, but he's a rookie. If you force some mistakes on him, he'll make those mistakes. And so when it comes to the 49ers offensive weapons, so George Kittle is the main threat I'm worried about. George Kittle, he had a spectacular bobbling catch against the Cowboys last week. I'm worried about George Kittle. Now the 49ers running backs with Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell, they were banged up reportedly. But I expect them to play. I expect both of them to play today because there's no way they're going to miss the NFC Championship. You're talking about a trip to the Super Bowl on the line, ladies and gentlemen. So I foresee both of them still playing in this game, even though they're banged up. Yeah, but you got to worry about George Kittle. You got to worry about Deebo Samuel. You got to worry about Brandon Ayuk. He did a spectacular hurdle over one of our guys a few years back. It was pretty cool. But we won that game, by the way. It was 2020, week 4 at San Francisco. So the 49ers, they have a lot of offensive weapons at their disposal. But we have one of the best back ends in defensive football. We have one of the best defensive back ends. You got Darius Slay. You have James Bradbury, who had a pick last week against his former team, the New York Giants. And most importantly, Avonte Maddox is coming back, which is a huge sign because he got hurt against the Cowboys on Christmas Eve after he sacked Dak Prescott. And he was having an amazing game, too. He was having a spectacular game. That Avonte Maddox injury changed that game against the Cowboys on Christmas Eve. Because after Maddox went out, Josiah Scott came in, and then the Cowboys started picking on him. So we have the return of a very elite top slot corner, that is. So I think that they can really hold their own against the 49ers and their offensive weapons they have all over. And I really want them to throw the ball deep in this game because all season long, the 49ers, they have not been good at covering these long passes of like 50 and 60 yards. You can really air it out on them. You saw it with the Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders were not a great team this year, and they put up 34 points. They put up 34 points on the Niners, and they were not a good team. They started like, I think, 0-3. They were 2-7 at one point. They rallied in garbage time, but it was no use because they were basically already eliminated at that point. But that Raiders game proves that the 49ers defense is not indestructible. And the Cowboys game last week proves that Brock Purdy isn't indestructible. He is still a rookie. If you send heat after him, if you make him uncomfortable, if you get him rattled, he'll make those mistakes. He nearly burnt the clock at the end of the first half last week, and that could have cost him a field goal in that game. And in a game that's that close by 7 points, that can make the difference between winning or losing. So take care, everybody. And go Birds. I think we're going to win this game 30-24. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like last week, which I did not see coming, by the way. I did not think we were going to beat the Giants 38-7. I was delightfully surprised. I'll take it, but I didn't see it coming, to say the less. But I think that this one will be a lot closer. I think it'll be maybe 7 to 3 point margin. I'm thinking 30-24 Eagles.